And welcome everyone for another session at the University of the Underground, together and in collaboration with the friends at Tour de Moon, who are putting together a new nationwide festival which is going to tour all around England in the summer 2022. And it's led by some great people, so including Majid, who is running the Union of Justice, who is co-sharing this session with us today, and advisory board members such as Jessica Stoya, who is joining us for this session today, and actually Marissa Malik, who has also been involved, full disclosure, we are all connected here, who has also been involved with Tour de Moon, the festival, by actually sharing some of her brilliant work as part of Moon Press, which is an independent press that has been launched in October 2021 and will be running all the way through the festival and will be, an urgent intervention into, into publishing with multiple underrepresented voices and nightlife voices that need and must be heard, which is why we built this specific platform, publishing platform, as part of it. Anyway, I am delighted to welcome you here. I am Nelly Benayoun, and I lead the University of the Underground, which is a free, pluralistic, and transnational education charity. And as I'm doing this, and before I introduce our amazing guests, I just want to share with you some great opportunities. So of course, this is where I'm sharing my screen, and there is some kind of booty call that appear on the screen or not. I don't know. So if you go and you lead straight into Tour de Moon and you press on apply there, you're going to see that there is basically more than 850 creative grants that have been created. We are basically giving away more than £1 million worth of funding for multiple different, creative and nightlife artists and creators out there. Namely, you can make an immersive cinema and get 25 grand to do that. You can make a short film and get £3,000 to do that. And then your film will be screened all over the UK, but also beyond. Moon Outline, if you wanted to make a meme, you can get £1,000 to do that. If you want to write a short play, £600. If you want to be a part of Moon Press, there is some standard rate. If you want to become like a creative director, if you want to do and submit some work in the fanzine, you can also talk about your realm of expertise. If you never spoke as well, if it's your first time, this is an opportunity to test out your skill set and speak about your passion subject. And there has been some amazing classes actually run as part of this how-to program as to how you can do that as well. Moon Music, you want to DJ, you can do sports, you can also tune your car or your vehicle or get into a costume and tour around the UK with us. Anyway, lots of opportunity, but really it's about empowering nightlife in a time where, we all have been really impacted by COVID, and we try to figure a way with this festival to actually reinforce, nightlife creator, wherever they are. So with that, this is my greatest pleasure to introduce you to two absolutely mind-blowing humans. So today we're going to discuss how to find a flexible money job you don't totally hate and work as much as needed to fund what you actually want to do. This is like an amazing question that has been actually put forward by Jessica Stoya. Jessica Stoya has been a career pornographer since 2006. She has written about sex work for the New York Times, The Guardian, The New Statement, and many others. She's half of the Slate's sex advice column since 2019. She currently completed the University of the Underground, actually artistic research program on belief, and individually studying the intersection of spirituality and sex work, and has continued working in that vein, including presenting the work she has done at the Red Rule, International Sex Work Conference. And also Jessica Stoya has got a fantastic book that has been released. You're going to tell us all about it, I'm sure. And just remember me the name of the book, Jessica Stoya. Sorry, I don't have it in your bio.
Philosophy, Pussycats, and Porn.
And it's an amazing book. If you have not read it, I had great pleasure to read it. And sorry, I butcher the name and the title, but I did read it because we had you as part of a radio program as well. So it's really, really honored to have you with us. I'm also going to introduce here Marissa Malik. Marissa Malik, is a London-based astrologer, bruja, and tarot reader, renowned for intuitive skills with the occult. She's known as one of the UK go-to authority on diasporic magic and modern witchcraft. Malik is the resident astronomer writer for Galdem magazine and regular contributor to the app Sanctuary. And she writes daily forecast as well as hosts Instagram Q&A and workshop on a bi-monthly basis. And we have as well, for those of you that cannot see us, I am a white woman. I have a jumper with some sort of bling, lot of bling, in fact, all over my face and everywhere. I have a lot of makeup. I have a red bright lipstick and hoops, and I have brown hair. And I'm gonna leave you introduce yourself as well, Jessica Stoya and Marissa Malik. And we have as well live caption going on in the chat if you wanted to put this on. After you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'll introduce myself. So I have, I'm wearing a black turtleneck with vertical lines, and I have medium length hair. I'm not wearing that much makeup today, which is actually rare for me. I'm a brown mixed race woman, and I have earrings on, a Medusa piercing, and a nose ring. And so, yeah, that is what I look like. Thank you so much for the introduction. Jessica, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you for that fantastic introduction, Nelly. If you ever decide to go into writing bios for people, I will be first in line. I am a very pale white woman. I'm wearing no makeup. I'm wearing a black scoop neck t-shirt that is covered in cat hair, which maybe the camera can't see, so maybe I didn't have to say that. And I have dark hair piled up in a bun on top of my head.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to crack on, and we're going to try to actually answer this question. So the question of today, how to find a flexible money job you don't totally hate and work as much as needed to fund what you actually want to do. I guess both of you have had like extensive experience in doing so, with building your career from scratch and doing it for a long time. So I'd love you to share some of your word of wisdom with all of us today. Jessica Stoya, I know you had actually a plan in place. So maybe we start there, and then Marissa, you can do your presentation as well, and then we can leave some time for Q&A at the end.
Super. So I got the booster shot a couple of days ago, and I'm still feeling a little out of it. So apologies if I don't make sense. Feel free to call that out in the chat box and be like, please explain. I was very interested in sexuality and sexy. So for me, sex work, which has a very low barrier of entry, although it is a lot of work once you're doing it, that made perfect sense for me. And I'm definitely not saying everyone should start taking their clothes off for money, but if you're not particularly shy, it is a great route. And mostly though, the lesson there is if you can find something adjacent to what you want to do that is profitable, then that's the most kind of ideal money job, because then you're like a little bit in what you actually want to do, and you're learning skills that may apply to what you want to do. But for the record, porn is so much paperwork. And if you're not good with paperwork, it is not a good job for you. If you're really proud of your body and your sexuality, it's a great job for you. But the key is balance. When I was performing full-time and under contract to a mainstream porn company, I wasn't able to do as much of my personal work as I really wanted to. And keeping track of the time that you're spending doing the money job is really important, so you don't lose yourself creatively and get distanced from the practice that you actually want to be working on. Another thing that's really important is balance in finances. When I was very young, like 18, maybe 19, there was this waitress named Cookie at this diner that I used to go into all the time. And one day she sat me down and she was like, "Do you know the envelope system?" And I'm like, "No, I have no idea what the envelope system is." Oh, hi, Pix. And so she explained, you take what you make and you divide it into thirds. And 1/3 is for rent and food, right? The stuff that you need to live. 1/3 is for saving for emergencies, because life happens and emergencies happen. And if you get stuck with only the money that you need to survive, then you're going to be in trouble. And the third is the fun third. And Cookie's idea was you use that for, getting your nails done or going out to dinner with a friend, or like whatever makes life nice for you. But what I would suggest for artists is that third is your art fund, and you want to protect that. And when you're thinking about like, oh, do I want to go to the bar with a friend? Like, maybe I suggest we get a bottle of wine and drink it at home instead. And then you have more money for your art. But thinking of these things as ratios can be really helpful. And you can apply that same thinking to your time. How much time am I spending doing the money gig? How much time am I spending resting? Because that's important to be able to think well and creatively, and going out and doing things can spark inspiration. And how much time are you spending actually doing your creative work? And like, put that in your calendar. Mark out this afternoon, like December 12th from 3 to 8 p.m., I'm going to do my art. And like really protect that time. That's actually, I think, all I have to say.
These are really valuable tips, actually, just to make sure to protect your time and make sure that you allow for this creative, booster to actually take place, to go back to the booster situation. But Marissa, Malik, how do you do it on your side? How do you fund? How do you keep the funding going? And how do you maintain your practice, which is also really, original and unique?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to first respond to some of what you said, Jessica, because there was some really great points in there. I'd never heard of the envelope system, but I'm always looking to integrate better financial practice into my life. So that's something I'm going to keep in mind and pass along. But I think you brought up 3 really important concepts that like all the things I wanted to discuss really revolve around, which is adjacency, time, and balance. I feel like my financial advice was not as good as yours, so I'm going to like back off on that, because I'm very enraptured with this envelope system. So I wanted to start on adjacency. So with adjacency, I feel like my way, I've always had relatively creative careers. I've done different types of work at different points in life. I worked in coffee shops, I worked retail. But figuring out a way to have work, even if it's a coffee shop or a retail job, that it can be adjacent to what you want to be doing, is really important, and getting creative in that way. So for example, one of the first jobs I had when I was in uni was I worked at Urban Outfitters, which we all know to be Urban Outfitters. And I was in art school at the time, and I was a printmaker, or I was starting my journey into being a printmaker. And so when I was working there, I was, surrounded around people who had at least a mild interest in fashion and some type of like art influenced thing for the most part. And I tried to connect with the people who did. And I was always thinking about how this big company had access to so many resources that, are people who are starting out an artistic career don't have. So whenever they would, want to extract ideas from us, I would try and volunteer things that I knew I could contribute to. So I mentioned that maybe they should do a live screen printing event at one of their aerobics line launches, because I love screen printing and I thought I could help facilitate that. And so they ended up doing that. And this was about a year into me working there. And then at that launch event, I literally just hung around the screen printers all night. They probably thought I was weird. Actually, they did tell me they thought I was weird, but they liked me. And I ended up getting my next job as a screen printer, making posters and apparel for people, where I was living in Boston at the time, through that opportunity. I always kept prints on me that I was really excited about. I had these weird witchy things in my bag constantly. So I was always trying to talk about and network with people around those things, but also, try and expand based on that. So yeah, I guess that brings me back to like what we're talking about with adjacency, because even though it's like a retail job at Urban Outfitters, I was pushing my own agenda as much as I could within the realm of what that was. And that was actually my jumping off point into the next phase of my career, which was working in a more artistic job as an actual printmaker. And I know I'm an astrologer and a musician now. So like I've done this kind of like cycle many times. So that's the first iteration of what I've done. And then at one point, because of gentrification in Boston, the screen printing company closed. And I was there like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I started working in a coffee shop. And yeah, I think that also brought me to mention that you should never be embarrassed about telling your networks that you're looking for work, and that no one is below any type of labor. And I know we live in a world where in neoliberalism, certain types of labor are very prioritized over others. But I think, if anything, the pandemic has shown us how important some of the more quote unquote menial jobs people work are. So whenever I've been, unemployed or looking for work, I've always been very boisterous about putting that out to my networks. So social media, talking to friends who I know have like industry connections, and just being vocal about those sort of things. So the next part of my trajectory was I worked at this coffee shop. I applied for a master's degree, and I ended up moving to London, where I did another degree in art for my master's. And at that point, I was kind of disenchanted with working in art, and I was always very music obsessed and really into my writing practice. So I kind of started streamlining based on my passions, what I wanted to do next, as they evolved. So, I kind of started fresh in a lot of ways, but I've been involved in music for a long time. So with music, I was, reaching out to my networks, asking people if they needed someone to open for free as a DJ, like thinking about, who I knew had a radio show, just talking to people about the trajectories of their careers. I think you can get very far by being willing to admit when you don't know something and giving people the chance to talk to you about their experience. And then, to alter it, when a white man is giving me advice about how it was so easy for him to become a techno DJ, I always recontextualize that in the lens of me being a queer brown woman who, is not that or playing that type of music. So thinking about your own personal context and what your goals are in something is really important. So then I started, using my time to like cross into different things in those realms of writing about astrology specifically and music. I was constantly looking at like websites, and social media is actually how I've gotten a lot of my jobs that have sustained me. After I graduated from my master's degree, I actually was given an artist visa to stay in the UK. And then I was like, great, now I need a job. like my student loan is run out. What do I do? So I was looking on Instagram one day, and actually Anjali, who works for Tour de Moon, was advertising a position at her old place of employment, which is a theater and music venue called The Yard. And she was advertising an assistant music producer role, where I applied. I made sure to reply to the story to express interest and tell her who I was. Followed up with the interview and everything, and ended up getting that job, which was, I guess now we can go into talking about time, which was very part-time, but, you know, and that's scary when you don't have the super solid stability. It's an alliteration, super solid stability of, of, you know, guaranteeing that there was going to be enough money for me to do all the thirds, the fun, the saving, and the live. I was just focusing on the live at that point. But I made sure that with my spare time, I was always able to contribute back into my own practice. And that job in music actually helped contribute back into my practice as well, because it was introducing me to DJs in the area of London that I was interested in being part of in that scene. I was meeting promoters and figuring out how parties ran and the infrastructure of them. And I was treating everything, this is very American of me, but I was treating everything like a networking opportunity, because on the one evil hand of that, it's very capitalism minded, but on the other hand, it's also a community mindset in thinking about anyone you speak to being part of a network of potential that could further where you want to be, not just in relation to capitalism and financial stability, which is important because that's the context we live in, but also in terms of just what you want to be doing and the type of people you want to be surrounded by and the ways you want to spend your time. My work as an astrologer, that's kind of my music journey. It all kind of snowballed upward from there. My time as an astrologer, I was posting a lot on social media because spiritual Instagram and TikTok, I'm getting better at TikTok. I'm not a Gen Z though, so I'm not great at TikTok yet. I was kind of snowballing from that, making sure that I was posting about both. I got my first column as an astrologer, as an astrology writer and astrologer, because I saw on social media that a magazine based in New York called Kajal magazine was looking for a horoscope writer. Kept up with that column, was asking different magazines in London constantly if they needed astrologers because I wanted to localize my practice to where I lived. And actually, so I've been writing for Galdem almost 4 years now. Oh my God, I'm getting old. But the reason that they started the astrology section is because the founder was at my house just, having drinks. And I was like, why don't you have an astrology section? It was actually something that I put forward. So it's really important to not be afraid to be generative and volunteer your ideas. I think, a lot of people nowadays are very precious about their ideas. And I think that's really important, especially the bigger you get, is to be protective of your intellectual property. But you also have to trust that in order for you to get the things that you want, you have to speak them out loud and let other people hear them and not be afraid that it's a bad idea. Because even if it is, you can do the whole failing forward thing and be like, okay, well, next time I'm not going to do it exactly that way. I'm just going to graze over my notes.
Shall we pause there? And actually, because also, Jessica, you have as well a colon in the slate. So it seems like the two of you have found that interesting way to actually fund. I mean, I'm not sure how, whether or not the colon actually fund your monthly income, but it's kind of like a steady income that you get every month. So do you recommend to actually figure out a way to actually get that kind of monthly income coming in? So a regular account that is going to maintain you, and is that the colon, the kind of the answer to that? Or is there a platform? I mean, I know that Stoya, you have, Jessica, Stoya, you have OnlyFans. I don't know if Marissa, you have OnlyFans. Is there as well other platform that you recommend to actually provide you with that kind of monthly income? Not that we are here to make any advertising for this platform, but I just think, shall we speak about this as well?
So a funny thing happens when you become a porn star that is accessible on social media. People bring you their sex questions because they see you having a lot of sex. So they think you must understand things about sex. And I was like, yeah, I'll take that challenge. And then once I was a sex advice columnist, it was my first column was at Refinery 29. I'd been in for an interview and the response on the site was positive. So they asked if I wanted to do something with them, maybe an advice column. And I was like, yeah, because people ask me to answer their sex questions for free all the time on like Twitter. So then, you know, once you say I am here for sex advice, it becomes about relationship questions, which is not an area that I'm super knowledgeable. So I had to start reading. But I enjoy the reading. I enjoy researching. I enjoy learning new things, especially about sexuality and adjacent to it. So then I ended up at The Verge for about a year, and finally Slate, where I've been for 3 years. Wow, that's a long time. And for me, it's a really great job because it's every question is an opportunity to go learn something, to go read this book and see if it's worth recommending, to email this expert who wouldn't have the time to talk to me if I was just like, hi, I'm Stoya and I'm curious. But when I'm Jessica Stoya from Slate, then frequently doors open. And it doesn't pay enough for me to live on in New York. It pays about half that much. Once I move to a small city in Europe, then I can completely support myself just on the column, which would be wonderful. But I have OnlyFans. It's fun. My job is to sit there and talk with people, which is nice. And you know, I use it as an excuse to buy lingerie and find nails that match, which just speaks to my inner child. I play dress up and ask people how they're doing in life. And actually sometimes people message with a sex advice question and I'm like, hey, if you want to go over here to Slate, then I can do like a serious job of this and maybe speak to this kind of expert who I think would be useful here. So at this stage in my career, everything kind of works together, right? The OnlyFans perpetuates interest in the fleshlight, both of which enable me to have the resources to support myself while I work on the column, which pays enough for me to buy the books for research. And it's all sort of this like set of spinning plates. But yeah, a column is great, even if all it pays is enough for you to do research. It's still sustaining growth, intellectual growth, and artistic growth.
And just for those of you that don't know what OnlyFans is, actually, I'm just seeing that it was funded in London, which I had no idea about. I don't know if you knew, I had no idea. Was launched in 2016. So it's got like 5 years of existence. And it's basically a place where, you know, content creator can earn money from users who subscribe to their content. So it's kind of like limited, like you cannot enter the content unless you are a subscriber, right? And it's been, you know, I was reading an article actually about the fact that in the UK, it's becoming like its own economy, like it's massive in the UK as well, mainly not just for sex workers, but also like people, you know, nurses, like people that are also looking at, you know, meeting, having two ends kind of meet. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, do you have any experience as well with OnlyFans, Marissa? I mean, obviously there has been a massive, we might talk about this or not. I don't know, Jessica. So yeah, if we're going to speak about the fact that OnlyFans did close for a while, but they reopened to sex workers now, I think. That was, but it's not a story anymore, isn't it? Because they actually...
It's kind of a story again. In August, they said they were going to ban adult content, and there was a huge public outcry, which for me was astonishing to see people with no connection to sex work standing up and saying sex work is real work. OnlyFans, why are you preventing these people from using your platform? And I believe because of that public outcry, they reversed their decision. But now I haven't gotten an email myself, but colleagues of mine have. They're not allowing videos over a certain length for adult creators. So they're like sort of like softly curtailing what we can do. So it may become a problem again. I hope not. I'm going to knock on wood.
I mean, I think we can talk about, we can unpack this even further in a bit, but like Marissa, Malik, do you have any, experience of using OnlyFans, or do you use Patreon? Or, I mean, there is other platform as well that supports, creators, and is that, or do you not, like, because you mentioned social media, so I'm just wondering as well.
Yeah,
for one that is
I have an OnlyFans and I love it. So sex in my practice is very interwoven. My social media presence has like a kind of an innate sexuality and sexiness to it, because I really enjoy expressing myself that way. And I see it as like, just very interwoven into everything I do. And when I realized that so much of the demographic, there's my demographic of my audience is very segmented into different things, and they cross over, but anyone can follow me for any number of reasons. So I have anywhere from, men who have hair fetishes, because I'm known for being like the girl who went viral for having like a very hairy stomach online. Because I got reposted by some big magazines and then interviewed by a lot of people, and I garnered a really large following pretty much overnight from that. So, my following can range from people who are interested in seeing that type of content from me to, young queer women and non-binary people who just want to read my astrology writing, but then also enjoy the sexuality of my content, to, broy music guys who just like the music I make, which is great too, So there's, once I'm trying to always feed back into my own practice and what I'm enjoying. And at this point in my life, doing OnlyFans is something that I really enjoy as well. And I like, embracing my body in that way. And so, I do have it, and it does provide a semi-stable form of income. It's one of those platforms, and I'm not sure if you agree, Jessica, but for me, it's very much one of those things where you get out of it whatever you give in. So on months when I've been just prioritizing other things, like I don't think I posted it all on my OnlyFans in September because I was touring a lot, like with DJ gigs and performances abroad. I didn't end up making that much money. I actually lost some subscribers because I wasn't generating content at the rate that they wanted. But other months when I've had lots of time where I'm like feeling myself and wanting to do OnlyFans content, it's been extremely lucrative. But then, Jessica, what you were saying about the recognition for columns opening doors, I think that is something that I wanted to underscore as well. Writing for Galdem by no means sustains me financially, it just about covers my bills living in London, actually. On that note, make sure join a union. Everyone here should join a union for whatever you're doing. Protect yourself as a freelancer or just individual artist, but in general, there's for any number of jobs you can do, there's always a union you can be associated with. And also on that note, no company should ever prevent you from unionizing. Yes, so side note, continuing, I don't make much at all from my Galdem column. However, it does open many doors, and it's all about figuring out whether the time and balance of what you're putting in is what is enough for what you're getting out of it. And it can be difficult in freelance life, especially in COVID, to like feel like, okay, something will come from this when it's not consistent. But then I have the work I do for Sanctuary, which is an astrology app. I write daily horoscopes from. The amount of writing I do for them every month is my consistent income that I'm guaranteed to be able to use to pay for 2/3 of the envelope thing. I love this envelope model. I'm gonna think about it all the time now.
Cookie is such a gem. Like, I just want to go find her and be like, tell me everything about life and write it down and publish
You're so wise.
By Cookie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there some, do you actually rationalize the decision you're making in terms of like, OnlyFans is not the most cooperative friendly platform when you dive deep into it, such as, and same for Instagram and all the others, Twitter and so forth. And it feels like there is a need to actually really have that cooperative maybe created, whether it's a cooperative that kind of like, if the cooperative of sex workers all around the globe was to create their own digital platform, then perhaps things would be really different, perhaps if there was like a cooperative of, astrologer that were to get together to actually be their own platform. Is that something that you've been dreaming about? Is that something that you want to do? And also, is there that kind of, are you thinking, okay, I'm not going to go to that platform, I'll go to that platform because I know this person, that is running that specific platform or not, how do you make that decision? Because it might be something useful as well for anyone watching.
Can I just say something quickly?
Oh, yeah.
That is such a brilliant thought that I think so many creatives have, especially people who aren't part of the ruling class, which is most of us. Well, actually covertly not a lot. There's a lot of people who are in the ruling class who are creatives, unfortunately. But because of how we're here in this lecture talking about how to make ends meet at the beginning of a career, it's kind of implied that we're not necessarily in those positions. And when so much of your time and labor has to go into making sure the infrastructure of your life is being supported by yourself, there's not always time to do the things that we would like to be able to do. I would love to start my own platform for X amount of things that I'm interested in, but making ends meet and being able to sustain yourself in capitalism is extremely difficult. I just wanted to say that really quickly.
Yeah, the capitalism of it all is a big problem for sex workers. You can go all the way back to the why can't I remember the years? 1700s. The 1700s with opera singers who were mostly prostitutes, and then opera got all classy, and all of a sudden you couldn't leave your gig and go have sex with the guy who was in the front row who wants to give you a bunch of money, because that wasn't the done thing anymore. And a number of sex workers have grouped up in small groups together, or like all on their own, tried to start a platform, but it all runs into MasterCard's policies and the US government. And it's not as simple as one would hope. And it's actually at this point, as of October, when MasterCard's new policies came into effect, incredibly expensive to have a platform, because you have to have the technology or the human power to monitor every single photo, every single minute of every video, and I believe every live stream. And that is insanely expensive. So as long as the infrastructure is what it is, and, you know, maybe blockchain has some possibilities, but that has a high environmental cost. It's unlikely that a group of performers are going to get our own platform off the ground. Capitalism.
And how about misusing existing platform?
I love seeing my colleagues just like push the line on Instagram. I am not brave enough to do it. I'm like, I need that account for Slate, so it's like too much for me to risk. But it's like, ooh, a picture where you could have a like strapless top on. I love it. Or like, wow, that's a big emoji covering something very exciting. It brings me joy. But then I always have to, like, when I don't see their posts for a while, I have to go to their Twitter or like text message them and be like, what's your new Instagram handle? Because their accounts get taken all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Pushing the line on those platforms, I feel like, as people who have provocative views about just, you know, life as it is something that like maybe we can both agree we feel called to do, especially given who is creating those policies and the reasons they're there. But then, yeah, it's that tricky, very fine line of, you know, I want to say fuck you to these people, but I also want to maintain this platform because I'm trying to do as much good with it and sustain myself as I can. I think, you know, I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago, I was given some really good advice, which I circle back to often, which is make sure your career can keep going even if you lose your Instagram. Which is, you know, the idea of losing your Instagram is, you know, it happens, but also just the notion that, you know, Instagram is just, it's not run by us. It's not ours. It could disappear at any time. We could wake up tomorrow and Instagram could just be gone, or like any social media platform at that. So just figuring out a way to have as much independence around what your work is, and like how it's authored, and keeping a really thorough archive of everything you do is really important as well. You know, go analog with portfolios, even if you can, which is very printmaker of me, but it is important and helpful, I think.
In this context, which is very much an art lens, I'm thinking of Stripe, which is the non-PayPal payment processor option for Big Cartel, which is what I use for my hard goods store. And I reached out to them. It's usually because of PMS. And I'm like, I'm just going to call people. And I call people and I ask them what their policy on adult media is. Can you define pornography? And Stripe, remarkably, unlike most payment processors, was like, yeah, if you feel it's art and it's a still image, then it's art. And I was like, fascinating. So if I can defend it as art, then it is art and it is allowed on the website. And they're like, yes. And I'm like, great. So also reaching out to the different platforms, like it's rare to get an actual response that's like useful, but reaching out and saying like, hey, what exactly are the rules here? This word that is practically indefinable, can you define what you mean when you use it? Okay, great. Now I know what the actual rules are and I can stay within them or push right up to the line if I feel like it, or even say like, I'm throwing a hand grenade in this and I'm going to go over the line and see what happens. But definitely all of these platforms have terms of service that you can call and ask questions about or like email, and sometimes they give you a useful response.
Shall we also discuss the fact that, you know, you're doing multiple different jobs, right? So it's not just one thing. And I think this idea that, you know, you can just do one thing and that will just sustain itself is an idea that is far gone. But how do we feel about this idea that if you do many different things, then, you know, you might not be the craft, you know, you might not be one craft of its own. You know, back in the days, the idea of the craft person was that you do just one thing and you do it really well. How do we think that things like that have shifted as well in your own, you know, in the way you function? And like you mentioned a bit, Marissa, it's not really like if that it's like a creative choice, it's just, you know, the infrastructure and the needs that, you know, kind of require this. Is that true, or is that also to do with curiosity and, you know, choices that you're making to actually like spread out in multiple different, you know, areas, so then you can extend your, you know, your reach, your network, but also the potential of your creative, you know, output? Sorry, big question. Yeah.
Marissa might know the technical term for this. I have a massive square in my chart, and I was told that that means I do best when there are like 3 or 4 or even 5 things going on that I'm sort of juggling. And I looked back at my creative life and I was like, right, yeah, I produce better work when I'm working a bit here, I'm working a bit there, and then going back to this and taking an idea from here. And Grand Cross, that's what it is.
You have a Grand Cross?
The square.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So squares are an aspect. Sorry, I'm not going to get technical. That's really exciting.
Grand Cross. Do you mind showing us, for those of us that don't know what a Grand Cross is? Do you want to show us on the screen?
I don't have an example of it.
Let me kind of see if I can find it online. Grand Cross. What is this? Never heard of it. So it's like, it's just a model, a management model, basically.
Yeah. And so I thought about it and I was like, this feels accurate. This thing that this astrologer is telling me, when I look at my life, it fits, it makes sense, it's logical. So I'm going to start doing that on purpose. And for instance, the I Want to Believe program with the University of the Underground was super great for me, because you have your individual project, but you're also taking all of these different classes or listening to all these different lectures, getting input from all sorts of angles, doing workshops, thinking about the podcast, thinking about the publication. And that was really functional for me. So for me, it's an astrologically guided, intentional choice to be sort of all over the place in a sort of orchestrated way, right? Like it's rare for me to be like, I'm going to go do something that makes no sense for me, that I've never shown an interest in. So it's all sort of in and around a similar thing. But yeah.
That's so cool. I love hearing that you're using astrology in your life that way, because I think one of the best iterations of how astrology can be used is to help you reach your highest potential. And sounds like that's how you're utilizing it, which is, again, very exciting. So Nelly, to answer your question, I have like an angel and a devil sitting on my shoulder. So I want to start from the point of saying that I think the most brilliant minds that we've experienced on planet Earth are multilingual creators, people who do many things and are passionate about a wide breadth of concepts and ideas and types of, tying together systems that, the world makes us segment: science and art, math and writing. Those are always the most interesting things that I experience in my life. However, then there's the evil of the gig economy that exists as a facet of neoliberalism, where it's kind of it's like a wolf wearing sheep's clothes, saying, okay, like, yeah, be this multilingual creator. But if we didn't have to do that, we could still do those things and just not have to monetize everything. It's really unfortunate, actually. I think that we have to take everything we're passionate about as artists a lot of the time, or people who work in different types of fringe modes of labor, and turn them into economically viable things. I would love to be able to be an astrologer and not have a financial pressure on that. And, and I don't think making money legitimizes your practice. You can do something, not make money from it, and still, call yourself whatever that is. So yeah, I think, I guess to kind of answer your question, like, it is nice that people are finding this ability to cultivate multiple parts of their personality, but I just wish everyone could do that in the context of it being more cool and chill.
Well, with that in mind, we're gonna both thank you so much for your time sharing your wisdom, unless you want to add anything more about how we can fund our practice. But it sounds like having multiple roles, finding colons, finding, peers, maybe, network as well of support. You mentioned the union is part of the starting point of, making sure that you have a network of support behind you, so that you can always develop creatively your practice. Is there anything else that you think we should know if we want to start a very unusual career? What else do you recommend? Tenacity, perseverance?
All of that, and the having multiple gigs is useful, because when one goes poof, you've still got the other one or two. So that's like a practical concern there.
Yeah, I just want to underscore that I agree with you, Jessica, but then I also want to underscore the idea that no one is below any type of labor. If you're working in a job that just feels like, oh my God, I have a degree and I'm doing this, don't feel that way. Undo that relationship to labor that you're doing. Don't devalue yourself and how talented you are and what your potential is just because that's your current context. That's, part of that has to do with material conditions, and but you shouldn't blame yourself, and you should just see it as part of your journey.
Thank you both so much. And where can we find you? How can we support you as well? Is there anything happening for you that everybody here should hear about? I mean, obviously this is recorded, so it's going to be shared, just so you know. But where is, how can they, how can everyone hear? I mean, I'm saying everyone here, there is not many people right there, but there will be lots on the YouTube. You're going to be a massive hit. So tell us, how can all these people on YouTube or whatever platform are going to be able to support you, find you, and what's going on in the next few weeks for you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. My handle is at MARIIMALS, Marimals. And next few weeks, I'm going to be doing a Instagram live on the sanctuary platform. Sanctuary is an app I write for, as I talked about. I'm giving a forecast about what's astrologically ahead of us for 2022. That's going to be towards the end of the month. And I will also soon be doing a review of a really great sexual wellness site called Cheeks as well. So you can look out for that on my Instagram. And then there will be DJ gigs coming up in Mexico, LA, and San Francisco soon as well. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Super exciting. And Jessica, Stoya, what is happening? This is Christmas. I mean, Christmas, New Year, busy period.
Yeah, so I'm at Stoya on Twitter, Instagram, and OnlyFans. And I'm actually really, a lot of my time is taken up with the process of moving cats to a different country. There's like 3 vet visits involved and a ton of paperwork. So I'll be spending the holidays doing like stuff with friends, stuff with family, and dealing with the cats.
Yeah, it happens. But it's like every single experience is a good experience. And at the end of the day, you're going to learn so much through the process of moving animals between nation states, which in itself is a project and an expertise, So that is something.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, both of you. Majid is back. What is happening, Majid? Is electric shortage being brought back in Thailand to you? What is happening?
It's all back up and running. Thank you very much. Everything's all good. Well, it's been amazing to hear. And the last bit that I caught in terms of with Marissa and Jessica too. Oh, have I frozen again? Hello?
You're back.
Okay, yeah. So clearly it's not fully functioning. But anyway, from what I heard anyways, 2 amazing, incredible women. So yeah, amazing.
And we're greatly honored to have you a part of Tour de Moon, and we're going to make sure that we figure a way to support your communities and the people that are following you and supporting you. And hopefully we can actually use that platform to build this big platform that we need for exactly. That is the way we should be using Tour de Moon. So let's keep talking and let's figure out how we're going to do this between now and the end of this show, which is end of June 2022. So we have 6 months to figure that one out. We're going to do this. And meanwhile, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday. Big love to you all. And that is that.